You think you're somebody, huh? Sticking your nose in my business? The words echo in a dimly lit gym, where a black female student sits bound to a chair, facing her tormentor. Moments later, the door bursts open, and her billionaire father steps in, his presence a silent storm. At North Haven High, this young woman endures whispers of racial slurs, cruel taunts, and unjust assumptions about her place in a prestigious school. Yet her courage burns brighter than the hate. Will her quiet strength reshape a community? Stick around to find out. Don't miss a single twist. Subscribe to our channel for the latest stories and drop a comment to let us know where you're watching from. Can she turn the tables on her bullies? Will justice prevail? Keep listening to uncover the power of her stand. The autumn air carried a crisp bite as Aaliyah Brooks stepped off the rattling school bus, her sneakers crunching against the gravel path leading to North Haven High. The school loomed ahead, its ivy-clad walls and gleaming windows, a testament to its prestige, a place where reputations were forged and broken under the weight of whispers and glances. Aaliyah adjusted her faded hoodie, the fabric soft from years of wear, and tugged her backpack higher. She wasn't here to make waves, not like the polished elites who ruled the hallways. She was here to learn, to carve her path, and to keep her father's name, Michael Brooks, tech titan, tucked firmly out of sight. Inside, the corridors buzzed with the frenetic energy of a new semester. Lockers slammed, laughter ricocheted, and Aaliyah wove through the throng, her dark eyes scanning the unfamiliar faces. Her presence didn't go unnoticed. A few heads turned, drawn to the quiet confidence in her stride, the way her braided hair swayed with each step, catching the fluorescent light. She wasn't loud or flashy, but something about her demanded attention, a gravity that unsettled the carefully curated hierarchy of North Haven. Her first class, English literature, was a cavernous room lined with oak bookshelves and portraits of dead poets. Aaliyah slid into a desk near the window, her notebook already open, pen poised. The teacher, Ms. Harper, a woman with sharp glasses and a sharp voice, launched into a discussion of "Their eyes were watching God." Aaliyah's hand shot up when a question hung unanswered, her voice steady as she dissected Janie's defiance. "She chooses herself over society's rules," Aaliyah said, her words slicing through the room's hum. "That's her power." A scoff broke the silence. Brandon Carter, sprawled at the back, his blonde hair falling artfully over one eye, leaned forward. "Guess you'd know about breaking rules, huh? Bet you're here on some diversity quota." His voice dripped with mockery, and a few students snickered, their eyes darting to Aaliyah. The room stilled, waiting for her to shrink. She didn't. Aaliyah turned, her gaze locking onto Brandon's. "If you spent half as much time reading as you do running your mouth, you might understand the book." Her tone was calm, lethal, like a blade wrapped in silk. The class erupted in stifled gasps and murmurs. Miss Harper's lips twitched, but she said nothing, scribbling a note as Brandon's face reddened. He muttered something under his breath, but the moment was Aaliyah's, and she knew it. By lunch, the incident had spread, a spark in the school's gossip tinderbox. Aaliyah sat alone at a corner table, her tray holding a modest sandwich and an apple, when a timid voice interrupted. "Can I sit here?" Sarah Miller stood clutching her books, her glasses slipping down her nose. Aaliyah recognized her instantly, the quiet girl who lingered on the edges, always a target for Brandon's crew. The crew. "Sure," Aaliyah said, sliding her tray to make room. Sarah's shoulders relaxed, and they talked about books, classes, and the way the cafeteria smelled like burnt pizza. It was a small connection, but Aaliyah felt its weight, a thread tying her to someone who saw her, not her father's shadow. The day's final bell rang, and Aaliyah headed for the bus stop, her breath visible in the cooling air. She passed the school's manicured lawn, where Brandon and the crew lounged, their laughter sharp and predatory. Sarah trailed behind, head down, her books clutched like a shield. Aaliyah slowed, sensing trouble before it unfolded. Brandon's voice cut through the dusk. "Hey, Miller, those glasses make you look like a librarian's reject." The crew howled as Sarah flinched, a notebook slipping from her grasp and hitting the ground. Aaliyah stopped. Her pulse quickened, but her face remained a mask of calm. She turned, stepping between Sarah and the group. "Pick it up," she said to Brandon, her voice low, unyielding. His smirk faltered, then hardened. "What, you her bodyguard now?" he sneered, kicking the notebook further. Aaliyah didn't blink. "Pick it up." The words hung heavy, and for a moment, the world narrowed to their standoff. The crew shifted, uneasy, but Brandon laughed, a brittle sound. "Whatever, freak," he said, but he didn't touch the book again. Aaliyah knelt, retrieving the notebook and handing it to Sarah, whose eyes brimmed with gratitude and awe. "Thanks," Sarah whispered. Aaliyah only nodded, but as they walked away, she felt Brandon's stare burning into her back. He muttered something to his friends, too low to hear, but the venom was clear. Aaliyah's jaw tightened. She'd seen that look before, the kind that promised retribution. As the bus rumbled toward her stop, Aaliyah stared out the window, the town's quaint streets blurring past. She wasn't naive. North Haven High was a battlefield of privilege and prejudice, and she'd just drawn a line. Brandon's words in class, the snickers, the way Ms. Harper's silence let them fester. They weren't new. They were echoes of a world that judged her skin before her soul. But Aaliyah Brooks didn't bend. Not to bullies, not to whispers. She leaned her head against the glass, her reflection fierce and unbroken. Whatever came next, she'd face it head-on, her courage a quiet flame ready to ignite. The autumn sun dipped low, casting long shadows across North Haven High's sprawling campus as Aaliyah Brooks navigated the crowded halls. Her encounter with Brandon Carter lingered like a bruise, but she carried herself with the same quiet resolve, her braided hair swaying against her backpack. The school's polished veneer couldn't hide its undercurrents, whispers of status, sidelong glances, and the unspoken rules that kept people like Brandon on their thrones. Aaliyah wasn't here to topple kings, but her small acts of defiance were planting seeds, and Brandon's pride was fertile ground for resentment. In the days following her standoff, Aaliyah's presence rippled through the student body. She slipped $1 to a freshman struggling at the cafeteria register, her smile warm as she waved off his thanks. She held the library door for a shy sophomore, ignoring the stares that followed. These gestures, small as pebbles in a pond, drew eyes, some admiring, others wary. Sarah Miller, now a tentative ally, began seeking her out, their conversations a refuge from the school's sharper edges. "You're different," Sarah said one lunch period, poking at her salad. "Most people just let things happen." Aaliyah shrugged, her gaze distant. "I'm not most people." But the difference invited scrutiny. By midweek, rumors slithered through the lockers. Aaliyah was a scholarship kid, admitted to fill a quota, her confidence a front for insecurity. The lies bore Brandon's fingerprints, his voice loud in the courtyard as he sneered to the crew. "She's nobody, just loud for attention." The words stung, not for their falsehood, but for their venom, laced with the kind of disdain Aaliyah knew too well. In the bathroom, she overheard two girls murmuring, "Why is she even here? It's not like she fits." Aaliyah washed her hands slowly, her reflection steady in the mirror, and walked out without a word. Silence, she learned, could be armor. Brandon's campaign gained traction. In history class, a boy named Ethan, one of the crew's hangers-on, slid a note across her desk. "Go back where you belong." Aaliyah's fingers tightened around her pencil, but she crumpled the paper and kept writing, her notes meticulous. She wouldn't give them the reaction they craved. Later in the hallway, a teacher's aide ignored her raised hand for help with a locker jam, only to assist a white student moments later. Aaliyah's jaw clenched, but she pried the locker open herself, the metal screeching in protest. Each slight, each jab was a test, and she met them with a fire that burned inward, steady and unyielding. Her resolve was tested again outside school. One afternoon, Aaliyah paused at the campus gate, where an elderly vendor struggled to right his overturned hot dog cart. She knelt beside him, steadying the cart as he thanked her profusely, his hands trembling. Brandon, lounging nearby with the crew, watched from across the street. He saw her worn sneakers, her lack of a sleek car, and a smirk curled his lips. "She's broke," he muttered to his friends. "Bet she's bussing tables to stay here." The assumption fueled his arrogance. Aaliyah, oblivious to his gaze, walked home under the fading light, her steps measured, her mind on the vendor's grateful smile. Brandon's mistake crystallized his plan. The fall festival, North Haven's grand spectacle, was approaching. Booths, lights, and a chance to cement his dominance. He saw Aaliyah as a loose thread in his kingdom, one he could unravel publicly. In a group chat, he typed out a scheme. Lure her to the gym under the guise of festival prep. The crew agreed, their laughter spilling through phone screens. Brandon crafted a message posing as the festival committee. Need help with sound setup in the gym? Can you come early? Aaliyah received it during study hall, her brow furrowing. The request felt off, too vague, but she hesitated to dismiss it. Refusing could paint her as uncooperative, a label she couldn't afford. She typed a cautious reply. Sure, I'll be there. As she tucked her phone away, Aaliyah felt the weight of eyes, classmates, teachers, even strangers in the hall. The rumors had thickened, a fog of doubt around her. She caught a glimpse of Sarah across the cafeteria, her friend's nervous wave a small anchor. Aaliyah returned it, but her thoughts churned. Brandon's taunts, the note, the aide's neglect. They weren't random. They were a chorus, singing the same tired song of exclusion. She wasn't naive. She'd faced it before, in subtler forms, in other towns. But North Haven was a stage, and Brandon was rewriting her role as an outsider. The bell rang, and Aaliyah shouldered her bag, her expression unreadable. She passed Brandon in the corridor, his grin sharp as a blade. He leaned toward a friend, whispering loud enough for her to hear. She's gonna learn her place. Aaliyah kept walking, her heart a steady drum. She wasn't here to play their games, but if Brandon wanted a fight, she'd meet it, not with his tactics, but with her own. The festival loomed, a spark on the horizon, and Aaliyah Brooks, unbowed, was ready to face whatever it ignited. The air buzzed with anticipation as North Haven High prepared for the fall festival, its campus alight with strings of golden bulbs and the scent of caramel apples. Aaliyah Brooks wove through the growing crowd, her faded jeans and loose sweater a stark contrast to the glittering outfits around her. She'd come to support Sarah Miller, whose trembling hands had set up a small booth of watercolor sketches, a brave step for a girl used to hiding. Aaliyah's smile was genuine as she admired Sarah's work, but her mind lingered on the cryptic message from the festival committee, the gym, sound setup. Her instincts prickled, warning of a trap, but she pushed the thought aside. She wouldn't let suspicion define her. As dust settled, Aaliyah made her way to the gymnasium, its double doors propped open, spilling fluorescent light onto the pavement. The interior was eerily quiet, the usual clamor of festival prep replaced by the hum of overhead lights. She stepped inside, her sneakers squeaking on the polished floor, and called out, "Hello? I'm here for the sound system." The silence swallowed her voice. Then a shadow moved in the corner, and Brandon Carter emerged, flanked by three members of the crew, Ethan, Jake, and Tyler. Their grins were sharp, predatory, and Aaliyah's heart thudded, though her face remained a mask of calm. "Thought you'd show," Brandon drawled, tossing a roll of duct tape between his hands. "You're dumber than you look." Aaliyah's eyes narrowed, scanning the exits. The doors behind her clicked shut, locked by Jake. "What is this?" she asked, her voice steady, though her pulse raced. Brandon stepped closer, his shadow looming. "This is you learning your place. You think you're somebody, huh? Sticking your nose in my business?" His words dripped with venom, and he spat a racial slur that cut the air like a blade. Aaliyah's fist clenched, but she held her ground, her gaze unflinching. Before she could react, Ethan and Tyler grabbed her arms, their grip bruising. She struggled, twisting against their hold, but they forced her into a metal chair, the cold biting through her sweater. Duct tape screeched as they bound her wrists and ankles, the sound grating against the gym's hollow echo. Brandon leaned in, his breath hot and sour. "You don't belong here," he hissed. "Not in my school. Not with your kind acting like you own the place." Aaliyah's chest tightened, not from fear but from the weight of his hate, a poison she'd tasted before. She met his eyes, her voice low, defiant. "You're wrong. I belong anywhere I choose to be." Brandon's smirk faltered, then twisted into rage. He raised his hand, poised to strike, the air crackling with his intent. Aaliyah braced herself, her jaw set, refusing to flinch. But the blow never landed. A sharp bang shattered the tension as the gym doors flew open, and Michael Brooks strode in, his tailored coat catching the light like armor. His presence filled the room, a storm held in check by a steely calm. His dark eyes, so like Aaliyah's, swept over the scene, and when they settled on Brandon, the boy froze, his hand still raised. "Touch my daughter," Michael said, his voice a quiet blade, "and you'll regret it for the rest of your life." The words were soft, but they carried the weight of a man who'd built an empire and feared no one. Brandon's arm dropped, his face draining of color. Ethan and Tyler stumbled back, their bravado crumbling. Jake fumbled with the lock, as if escape were an option. Aaliyah, still bound, lifted her chin, her eyes meeting her father's. "I'm fine, Dad," she said, her tone even, unbroken. "Let the school handle this." The command in her voice startled Brandon, who stammered, "We were just messing around, man. It's not—" Michael cut him off with a look, his silence more damning than words. He pulled out his phone, dialing the principal with a single tap. "You'll want to see this," he said into the receiver, his gaze never leaving the boys. Outside, the festival's music drifted faintly, a jarring contrast to the gym's suffocating tension. Sarah Miller's role in this moment was fleeting but pivotal. She'd spotted Aaliyah being led to the gym by the crew, their laughter too cruel to ignore. Racing to the school's entrance, she'd found Michael Brooks, his sleek SUV stalled by a flat tire. Her breathless warning, "Aaliyah's in the gym. They said it's for the festival, but something's wrong," had sparked his instinct. He'd followed her back, his strides long and purposeful, driven by a father's unspoken fear. As Michael untied Aaliyah, his hands gentle but firm, she stood, rubbing her wrists, her posture unbowed. Brandon and the crew stood cornered, their defiance reduced to nervous glances. Aaliyah's eyes burned with a quiet fire, not for revenge but for justice. She'd walked into a trap, faced hate head-on, and emerged not as a victim but as a force. The principal's footsteps echoed in the hall, a reckoning approaching. Aaliyah glanced at her father, a silent understanding passing between them. This wasn't the end. It was a beginning, and she was ready to shape what came next. The morning after the fall festival, North Haven High hummed with a restless energy, as if the gymnasium's walls themselves whispered of the night's upheaval. Aaliyah Brooks stepped through the school's arched entrance, her braided hair pulled into a tight bun, her eyes scanning the familiar corridors with a new weight. The air felt charged, heavy with the fallout of Brandon Carter's failed ambush. By noon, Principal Vaughn's voice crackled over the intercom, announcing Brandon's indefinite suspension and disciplinary measures for his accomplices, Ethan, Jake, and Tyler. The words were firm, but Aaliyah knew announcements alone wouldn't mend the fractures in the school's soul. In the cafeteria, conversations buzzed like static. Aaliyah sat with Sarah Miller, her tray untouched, as curious glances darted their way. Some students nodded in quiet respect, their eyes lingering on Aaliyah's composed posture, but others whispered, their words sharp as thorns. "She's blowing it out of proportion," a girl muttered nearby, loud enough to be heard. "It was just a prank." Aaliyah's fork paused, her jaw tightening, but she kept her gaze on Sarah, who fidgeted with her glasses. "Ignore them," Aaliyah said softly, her voice a steady anchor. "They're just scared of the truth." The truth, however, was a battleground. By afternoon, the school's social media pages erupted with anonymous posts, their venom aimed at Aaliyah. "She's playing the race card to get attention," one read. "Why make a big deal out of nothing?" another sneered. Aaliyah scrolled through the comments in the library, her phone's glow casting shadows on her face. Each word was a needle, pricking at the edges of her resolve, but she refused to flinch. She turned to Sarah, who sat beside her, eyes wide with worry. "They want me to stay quiet," Aaliyah said, her tone measured, "but I'm not here to make them feel comfortable." Sarah nodded, her own courage flickering, inspired by her friend's unyielding spirit. The school's response wasn't limited to punishment. That evening, a group of students led by Sarah gathered in the art room, their voices low but determined. Aaliyah joined them, her presence quiet but commanding. They brainstormed the ways to confront the school's underbelly: bullying, prejudice, the silent complicity that let both thrive. "We need to talk about it," Aaliyah said, her words cutting through the room's hesitation. Not just what happened to me, but what happens to anyone who's made to feel less. A junior named Kayla, who'd once avoided Aaliyah, spoke up, her voice trembling. I've seen it too. Kids are getting picked on for their skin, their clothes. It's not right. The group agreed to propose a forum, a space to air truths too long buried. Ms. Harper, the English teacher who'd once let Brandon's taunts slide, attended the meeting, her face etched with guilt. I should have done more, she admitted, her glasses glinting under the fluorescent lights. I'm in, whatever you need. Aaliyah met her eyes, offering a small nod. Not forgiveness, but acknowledgement. Change, she knew, started with those willing to face their failures. At home, Aaliyah faced a different challenge. Michael Brooks sat across from her at their sleek dining table, his coffee untouched, his voice tight with protective fury. We can take this further, Aaliyah. Lawyers, the press, those boys won't walk away unscathed. His eyes, usually warm, burned with a father's wrath. Aaliyah leaned forward, her hands clasped, her resolve unshaken. Dad, I don't want a courtroom victory. I want North Haven to change from the inside out. Let the school handle it. Michael's jaw worked, but he exhaled, his pride warring with her logic. You're stronger than I was at your age, he said finally, but I'm not standing by. He revealed a plan to fund an equity program for the school, anonymous but impactful. Aaliyah's lips curved, a rare smile. That's enough. The next day, Aaliyah returned to North Haven, her stride purposeful despite the mixed currents around her. In the hallway, a freshman slipped her a note. Thank you for standing up, and scurried away. In English class, the room where Brandon had once mocked her, she felt a shift. Ethan, one of the crew, sat in the back, his head down, avoiding her gaze. Two classmates, previously silent, offered her quick nods, their respect unspoken but clear. Aaliyah took her seat, her notebook open, her pen steady. The air wasn't free of tension, but it carried something new. Possibility. Ms. Harper began class with a question about courage in literature, her eyes briefly meeting Aaliyah's. Sometimes, she said, it's not about fighting back, but standing firm. Aaliyah's hand stayed down, but her presence answered. She wasn't a hero in a cape, just a girl who'd faced hate and chosen defiance over despair. As the bell rang, Sarah caught up with her, her voice brighter. The forum's happening next week. People are listening. Aaliyah's eyes softened. Good. Let's keep them talking. Outside, the autumn leaves swirled, a reminder of time's relentless march. Aaliyah Brooks stood taller, not because the fight was over, but because she'd claimed her ground. The school's wounds were raw, its voices divided, but she'd sparked a reckoning. Whatever lay ahead, support or scorn, she'd meet it with the same quiet fire, ready to shape a future where no one had to shrink to belong. The autumn chill deepened at North Haven High, where the echoes of the fall festival's turmoil lingered like frost on the windows. Aaliyah Brooks moved through the hallways, her sneakers soft against the polished floors. Her presence a quiet force that shifted the school's rhythm. No longer just the new girl, she carried an aura of resilience, her braided hair catching the light as students parted to let her pass. Some offered smiles, others averted their eyes, but all felt the change she'd sparked. A slow, stubborn awakening in a place long bound by unspoken rules. In the cafeteria, Aaliyah set her tray down at a table where Sarah Miller waited, joined by a handful of unexpected faces. A junior named Marcus, who'd once kept his distance, slid into a seat, his voice low but earnest. What you did, it got people thinking, he said, glancing at Aaliyah. A sophomore girl, Lila, nodded, her earrings glinting. Yeah, like, maybe we don't have to just take it. Aaliyah's lips curved, not a full smile but a spark of hope. She stirred her soup, her eyes thoughtful. It's not about me. It's about us not staying quiet anymore. The table hummed with agreement, a fragile alliance forged in her shadow. The school's wounds were still raw, and not all voices sang her praises. In a sociology class, Mr. Thompson, a teacher with a penchant for outdated views, launched into a lecture on social harmony. We'd all get along better if we stopped focusing on differences, he said, his tone dismissive. Aaliyah's hand rose, steady as stone. Ignoring differences doesn't fix anything. she countered, her voice clear, piercing. We need to face them, talk about them, to make things right. The room stilled, students shifting in their seats. Mr. Thompson's mouth opened, then closed, his face reddening. Well, perhaps we can discuss this further, he mumbled, and Aaliyah leaned back, her point made. A few classmates exchanged glances, some impressed, others uneasy, but her words hung in the air, undeniable. Sarah, emboldened by Aaliyah's example, found her courage. In the library, she overheard Tyler, one of Brandon's former crew, mocking a freshman's stutter. Sarah stepped forward, her glasses slipping down her nose, her voice firm. Apologize now. Tyler scoffed, but Aaliyah, browsing nearby, turned, her gaze a silent reinforcement. Tyler muttered a grudging apology and slunk away, his bravado deflated. Outside, Sarah caught Aaliyah's eye, her face alight with pride. I did it, she whispered. Aaliyah's nod was small but warm. You're stronger than you think, she said, her words a gift. The fall festival's aftermath culminated in a ceremony that evening. The gym transformed with banners and soft lighting. Aaliyah hadn't sought the spotlight, but when Principal Vaughn called her name for the Spirit of Community Award, the crowd's applause was a wave rolling over her. She stepped onto the stage, her jeans and sweater unchanged, her posture unyielding. The award, a simple plaque, felt heavy in her hands. This isn't about being loud or winning fights, Aaliyah said into the microphone, her voice steady, resonant. It's about lifting each other, no matter who tries to pull us down. The room erupted, students on their feet, even those who'd once whispered against her. Sarah's cheer was the loudest, her hands cupped around her mouth. Later, as the festival wound down, Aaliyah's phone buzzed with a message from Brandon Carter. I messed up. I was jealous, stupid. I'm sorry. The words were clumsy, raw, a crack in his armor. Aaliyah stared at the screen, her thumb hovering. She didn't reply, not yet, but she saved the message, a seed of possibility in a heart that hadn't softened but wasn't closed. She slipped the phone into her pocket, her gaze drifting to the festival lights twinkling outside. The school's transformation was subtle but real. In the halls, students who'd once ignored the bullied now paused, offered words or stepped in. Aaliyah noticed a freshman linger to help another pick up scattered books, a small act echoing her own. She passed Mr. Thompson's classroom, where a new poster announced a discussion series on equity, his handwriting shaky but sincere. Aaliyah's influence wasn't loud, but it was deep, rooting itself in the school's bones. As she boarded the bus home, Aaliyah leaned against the window, the town's lights blurring past. She wasn't a savior, just a girl who'd refused to bend. The award in her bag was less important than the conversations it had sparked, the eyes it had opened. North Haven High was still imperfect, its scars fresh, but Aaliyah Brooks had planted something enduring, a call to stand, to speak, to change. The bus rumbled on and she closed her eyes, her breath steady, ready for whatever the next day would demand. Winter's breath had settled over North Haven High, frosting the windows and dusting the campus with a quiet that mirrored the school's newfound introspection. Aaliyah Brooks walked the halls, her scarf loose around her neck, her braided hair tucked beneath a knit cap. The weight of the fall festival had faded, but its echoes reshaped the school's pulse. Aaliyah's footsteps, once solitary, now drew nods from strangers and smiles from allies, her influence woven into the fabric of a community learning to mend itself. She hadn't sought to be a beacon, but her defiance had lit a path others were beginning to follow. In the library, Aaliyah paused by a bulletin board, where a flyer announced a new equity workshop, funded anonymously but bearing her father's subtle signature. A freshman named Jamal approached, his backpack slung low, his voice hesitant. I'm new here, he said, eyes darting. People like us. It's hard to fit in. Aaliyah's gaze softened, seeing her early days in his uncertainty. Be you, she said, her words firm yet kind. The right ones will stand with you. Jamal's shoulders lifted, and weeks later, she spotted him at a debate club meeting, his voice steady, a spark kindled by her quiet encouragement. The school's transformation was tangible, carved in small, stubborn acts. Aaliyah joined Sarah Miller and a diverse crew, Marcus, Lila, and others, for a community project, painting a mural on the courtyard wall. The design, a mosaic of hands in every shade, bore the words, "We all belong." As Aaliyah dipped her brush in vibrant blue, laughter mingled with the scent of paint, a harmony that felt fragile but real. Even students who'd once cheered Brandon's antics joined in, their strokes tentative, as if testing new ground. Ms. Harper, passing by, paused, her usual sharpness softened. "You've changed how we see things," she told Aaliyah, her voice low with respect. Aaliyah only nodded, her focus on the mural, but her heart carried the weight of those words. Classrooms, too, bore marks of change. In sociology, Mr. Thompson led a discussion on systemic bias, his earlier defensiveness replaced by a clumsy but earnest effort. Aaliyah listened, her pen still, as classmates shared stories of exclusion, their voices raw. She didn't speak, but her presence, steady, unapologetic, amplified theirs. Outside, the halls were less of a gauntlet for the vulnerable. A sophomore helped a bullied peer retrieve a dropped sketchbook, a gesture Aaliyah noticed with a quiet pride. The school wasn't perfect, but it was listening, and that was her legacy taking root. At home, Aaliyah sat across from Michael Brooks, the city's skyline glinting through their penthouse window. He sipped his tea, his eyes tracing her with a father's blend of awe and worry. "You could have let me handle it, you know," he said, referring to the gym incident months prior. "Gone public, made them pay." Aaliyah leaned forward, her voice calm but resolute. "I wanted them to see me, Dad, not your name, to know I'm enough." Michael's smile was slow, proud. "You've always been enough," he said, his hand briefly squeezing hers. "You've done what I never could, changed a place from the ground up." Aaliyah's chest warmed, but she deflected with a shrug, her humility as fierce as her courage. Her refusal of the spotlight was deliberate. When a local reporter called, seeking an interview about the hero of North Haven, Aaliyah declined, her voice polite but firm. "It's not about me," she told Sarah later, as they sorted flyers for the next equity forum. "It's about what we're building." Sarah, now bolder, grinned. "You're still the spark, though." Aaliyah laughed, a rare, unguarded sound, but her eyes were on the future, not the praise. The semester's end brought a quiet moment of reflection. Aaliyah stood outside the school, her breath visible in the crisp air, watching students stream past. Some carried posters for the mural project. Others chatted about the upcoming forum. The divisions that once carved North Haven, between the powerful and the powerless, had blurred, not vanished, but softened. Aaliyah's role wasn't to erase them, but to show they could be bridged. She thought of Jamal, now debating with confidence, of Sarah, no longer shrinking, of the mural, its colors a testament to unity. As she boarded the bus, Aaliyah's reflection in the window was serene, her cap pulled low. She wasn't a legend, nor did she want to be. She was a girl who'd faced hate with truth, who'd turned a moment of cruelty into a movement of change. North Haven High bore her mark, not in banners or headlines, but in the voices now heard, the hands now extended. The bus rolled forward and Aaliyah closed her eyes, her heart steady. Her legacy wasn't loud, but it was lasting, a quiet courage that whispered, "You are enough and you belong." What did you think of Aaliyah Brooks's journey at North Haven High? Her quiet courage turned a moment of cruelty into a legacy of change, proving that strength doesn't always roar. It can whisper and still shake the world. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and share what this story meant to you, or let us know where you're listening from. Your voice matters. If Aaliyah's story inspired you, subscribe to our channel for more stories of resilience and hope, delivered fresh to your feed. Thank you for joining us on this powerful ride through North Haven High. Your support keeps these tales alive, and we can't wait to bring you another story that sparks your heart and mind. Until next time, keep standing tall, and we'll see you soon.